Hyped. That is the word I would use to describe the feeling that consumed me when I watched the first official Avengers Doomsday trailer. I was quite hyped for the movie. It felt really good, and which was quite strange to me because I didn't want to be. I didn't want to invest anything into this movie whatsoever because my rational brain understood that it was almost impossible, and it still is almost impossible, for this movie to be great because there's too many characters, both new and old, a whole new villain that has no type of underpinning, no type of build up to him, and a conflict that just comes out of nowhere. There's no way this movie should be great. It would take a miracle to make it as great as the height of Infinity War and Endgame, and yet I felt the feeling regardless. I spent a day trying to figure out why I felt that way, and another day trying to figure out whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing. And the conclusion I came to has widespread consequences, I think, upon not just the MCU, but also upon Star Wars and even the DC universe and in any franchise that wants to throw their hat into the box office ring. And the answer to the question, the first piece of that answer, starts way, way back, a decade ago, in a small apartment in rural Virginia. January 2016, in a small apartment in rural Virginia, a single statement was told to me that again has the answer to this entire question that I've been asking to myself. And that statement was, I am a Star Wars fan. The statement came in a conversation between a female acquaintance of mine and myself. This female acquaintance was a friend of a friend, and we weren't talking for the first time, but we were actually talking deeply about anything, to be honest. And what we ended up coming to the conclusion of, or at least we ended up starting to talk about, was Star Wars. We started talking about our love of Star Wars, both of us really were into the fandom, and we just started talking about Star Wars in general, which of course, since it was the year 2016, January of 2016, what ended up happening, of course, is that we ended up talking about the most recent movie to come out of Star Wars, which was The Force Awakens. That came out in 2015, December 2015. So it was pretty fresh in both of our minds. And I remember that, of course, she asked me about the movie, just seen the movie. I said I had. And then, I asked, did you like the movie? And she told me that she really did. She loved the movie completely. And I remember that, of course, for me, I didn't like the movie, of course. I still don't like the movie. Even all those years ago, I understood there were a lot of different problems with the movie. I understood that the idea of Kylo Ren losing to Rey was destructive, not only to Kylo Ren's character, but also to Rey's character, and will have reverberations throughout the entirety of the Star Wars universe. I knew that when you look at the original main characters, Luke, Leia, Han Solo, I know that their actions they'd taken, is even in the prologue of this story, were completely destructive to their characters. There was no way that Han Solo would have abandoned his family after the character arc he went through inside the entire original trilogy. There's no way that Luke's Jedi Temple should have failed and that he would exile himself from the rest of the world and let the galaxy just basically fend for itself. There's no way that the Luke from Return of the Jedi would have done that. And there's no way that Leia, who was in charge of the New Republic, or at least a very big role within the New Republic, would have allowed the First Order to exist, would have allowed them to gain as much power as they did, to the point where they even eclipsed the power of the New Republic. So I knew instinctively that all these interpretations were complete betrayals of the characters involved, and of the world itself involved. I knew that something had been damaged in Star Wars. I knew that there was going to be a lot of work to be done to try to fix it, even all those years ago, even if I couldn't properly articulate it in the same way I can now. And so I when I was asked about whether or not I liked it, I mentioned I didn't. Of course, I didn't like the movie. And when I was asked why, I explained why. Again, I wasn't as articulate as I am now, but I still, I think, did a fairly good job of explaining why I didn't like the movie without being disrespectful to the movie itself or to the person I was talking to. And as again, it was 10 years ago, I was a different person back then, and I felt I didn't understand the world as I do now. I was a lot younger, of course, obviously, not as wise. And essentially, when I finished saying all these things, I expected a certain reaction. I expected the reaction I had gotten from every other Star Wars fan I talked to about this, whether it be my friends and my siblings. When we talked to them about Star Wars, and funnily enough, some of them are bigger Star Wars fans than even I was. They came to the same conclusions I did, either instinctively, or after I explained them my point to them, or they explained their point to me, we came to similar conclusions, right? We had some small disagreements, but it wasn't anything major. And of course, I expected the same thing from this girl. And instead, she told me that she understood all of these problems with the movie itself, but she still accepted the movie and loved the movie. I think that's perfectly fine. You can love a movie that's bad. You can do that. It's your prerogative. It is a subjective choice to make. But she said this was a good thing for Star Wars. And I remember just being like, what do you mean? What do you mean this is a good thing for Star Wars? This is a destruction of the entirety of Star Wars universe in so many different ways. And what she told me is that the statement that I mentioned at the beginning of this story, which is, I'm just a Star Wars fan. I basically love everything that comes out from Star Wars. And again, that statement confounded me. At the time, of course, I simply said, let's agree to disagree, and we just moved on. It confounded me. I was just like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're just a fan of Star Wars? How can you be a fan of a movie that completely destroys everything you loved beforehand? And again, I've been asked this question for quite some time, and I didn't really get a good answer to it for many years. But then I started looking into philosophy because I, of course, like to look into different things to expand my knowledge. And of course, as I looked into philosophy, I got confronted with a paradoxical equation that was brought up years ago. One of the most famous ones of all time, one of the paradoxical equations that even I had heard before. But now, as I'm hearing it again, not now, but then as I was hearing it again, and at the time, for some reason, I was also able to think about that statement, I am a Star Wars fan, that I understood something, that something unlocked for me. And that was the paradox of Theseus' ship. Well, for those of you who don't know, or those of you who need a refresher, Theseus' ship is this paradoxical equation, this paradoxical idea, this hypothetical, that if you take a ship, Theseus' ship in this case, so we have a name for the ship, Theseus' ship, and you remove every single piece of it, every single plank, every single board gets removed over time due to the wear and tear and so on and so forth, until it becomes a whole new ship. So as not a single piece of the original ship exists, it is still Theseus' ship at this point, even if the pieces get removed slowly over time, even if, there's nothing left of the original ship, is it not still Theseus' ship? And again, for me, when I first listened to it all those years ago, I thought this was obvious. I thought it's obviously not the same ship, because it just had the name of the ship without having the pieces that make the ship itself. Of course, the second time I heard it with this Star Wars idea in my mind, I had a new idea of it, which is that basically this equation, this hypothetical is what this girl unsuspectedly put upon me, which is that, again, what is Star Wars itself? She said she's a fan of Star Wars. What is that thing? Now, to her, it seems to be Theseus' ship. The title, Theseus' ship. Star Wars itself, the title that it works with, that is the ship itself. That is what it is. And thus, anything under the banner of Star Wars, she's going to like. I remember she told me, I'm going to like whatever they put out there because of the fact that it is Star Wars. I'm just happy to have new Star Wars content. And I think that while I don't agree with that point of view, there is a bit of merit to it, because overall, that is kind of what things are. That's part of what Star Wars is. Part of what Star Wars is its name, is the title of it. It's the same thing I did when I looked at different, I looked at this from a point of view of my football team. Anyone knows when I started the channel out, I actually started talking about football, American football first. And my team, the Tennessee Titans, I talked about them first. And the Tennessee Titans are a title of a team, but of course the components of the team have changed. The coach is different, the players are different, the uniform is different, and yet it's still called the Tennessee Titans. So thus, in my opinion, it can't simply be that the name is the only thing that matters. At the same time, it can't be a thing that the name is doesn't matter at all. I think there's a bit of power in the name itself, the Tennessee Titans, Star Wars, or even finally the MCU. So the question, at least to me, becomes, what is Star Wars besides the name? The name is obviously part of it, but there are other pieces. And I think the other two pieces are kind of simple. The two pieces that are why Force Awakens still is a destruction of Star Wars. And the first piece, of course, is the characters, the overall characters and their journeys, the actual staying true to those characters. That's part of what makes Star Wars, which is why you can say when they destroyed those characters, they destroyed their motivation, they destroyed who those characters are, that's still a destruction of Star Wars. So, but at the same time, you can still make a good Star Wars story without those particular characters. That's still a possible thing to do. The final piece, what I think is what ties it all together. I think with these three pieces, you need at least two of these three pieces in order to make a true Star Wars story, or a true story of anything, to be honest with you. And that final piece is the soul of the story, the themes, the arcs, the continuous nature of how things are supposed to go. It's something ethereal, something that cannot necessarily be fully touched, something that can only be truly, honestly felt. Because you can feel when a character is doing something that they wouldn't have done, when the world is moved in a way that is forcing the characters toward a choice that they were never supposed to be forced towards, where the themes of the story have been changed and made in a different way. And I think that's what happened with The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens came in there. They had the same general theme, and they had the name of Star Wars there, and they completely butchered and destroyed the characters, which of course, I think with all these things, these three pieces are solidical as far as they all affect each other. So by butchering the characters, they affected the actual soul of Star Wars, the happy ending at the end, the great hero's journey that Luke went through, and so did the rest of the other characters. And because of that, they affected the soul of Star Wars. They damaged it. And then, of course, I think the reason why people didn't not care as much, but they didn't care as much at the next movie, The Last Jedi, is because when you look at the way that this thing was destroyed, it was a destruction, but it was still only the destruction of the characters, which it did again affect the soul, which affected the brand, Star Wars itself, but it still was first affecting the characters. One piece was only destroyed, and you can still live without one piece. And thus, I think people didn't necessarily see it as deeply. The second movie, The Last Jedi, I think did far more damage. It not only did completely obliterate the characters, completely severing that line, that one major piece, but then went on to damage the soul, attack the themes, attack the main ideas behind Star Wars, the Force, and so on and so forth. Rian Johnson came to the soul of Star Wars, and he, basically came out of the chainsaw, cutting off pieces of the soul, and then melding on his own grotesque pieces of his own ideology onto the soul of Star Wars. And these, putrid and poisonous pieces essentially completely destroyed the overall soul of Star Wars to the point where people could not ignore it. And now the only thing left in Star Wars that was undamaged was the brand. And even the brand, of course, since it's solidical, since all these things affect each other, was now getting poisoned itself. And that's where we're at now. Of course, in the last movie, The Rise of Skywalker, they tried to cut off the pieces that, Rian Johnson had grafted onto the soul. They tried to do what they could to heal it up, but ultimately speaking, it was already destroyed. And the characters that were made before, since Rian Johnson completely destroyed them, they were unrecoverable without, of course, a reboot or anything like that, in which they weren't willing to do, which means that, again, the soul of Star Wars was still damaged, not beyond repair, but still incredibly damaged. And the brand itself was now suffering because of that, and the characters were destroyed. And thus, an entire franchise is, basically at the brink of death, which it has been limping along at that brink for quite some time now. But that brings me all back to, of course, the main idea, the thing I started this video with, which is, of course, the idea of I was so hyped about Avengers Doomsday. And that was the final piece, because that's what let me understand the idea of the soul of the story. The reason why I was hyped for Doomsday, despite the destructions, the Phase 4 has been in many cases the similar way to what the Force Awakens of the sequel trilogy really is to the overall Star Wars. The Phase 4 is that for the MCU. And unfortunately, when you really look at it, I don't think MCU, or rather fortunately you could say, I don't think the MCU has been completely destroyed in the same way that Star Wars has. The soul of the MCU has been, first of all, was far less defined than the soul of Star Wars. And because of that, it was never going to be as, as meaningful in my personal opinion. But at the same time, I don't think it was ever going to be, doesn't need as much damage to destroy it, put it that way. The soul is just much more unstable, so it's much smaller. It means that soul can be destroyed much easier. So even The Force Awakens for us was enough to really damage what Star Wars, MCU really was. Fortunately, at the same time, they have not destroyed the characters in the same way that Star Wars has. Steve Rogers is still Steve Rogers. Thor, even though he's been going back and forth between this Love and Thunder version and the other version he's going to be in this movie, is not destroyed to the point that he cannot be recovered. But the characters are better kept, and the soul of the story is damaged, but it still exists. And the brand that's experienced so much damage from both those other pieces being damaged, it still can survive. I think that's why me and I felt hyped, because even though if you watch a new Star Wars movie, see a new trailer for that, you're not as hyped as you are for, at least as I was, for Avengers Doomsday. I think Avengers Doomsday was a sign, and seeing that trailer was a sign that there's still hope for the MCU to continue. There's still hope for the MCU to be great in the end. And that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing that can again reverberate across DC, that can reverberate across Star Wars. There's still hope for these things. It's going to take a lot of work, it's going to take a lot of effort. But Star Wars, if you can try to fix the soul of Star Wars up, bring back the great themes, bring back the great ideas from the original trilogy, make the Jedi and the Sith back in the front, all these things I mentioned in one of my last video I put out. If you do all those things, the Star Wars can still be, I wouldn't say necessarily fully saved, but I would say it can still be restored to its former glory, and then of course eventually pushed further into the future. I think the same thing goes for DC. If you can understand the soul of these characters, what actually makes these characters what they are, then you can fix it. That's the problem with Jedi the Universe. It doesn't have the soul of the characters necessarily put down yet. But if they can get that done, they can eventually be able to bring back characters and have the same amount of hype felt amongst the fans that I felt with Avengers Doomsday. But that's just my thoughts on it. What are your guys' thoughts? Comment down below if you like the video. If you don't like the video, comment down below. Still the same. Let me know what your thoughts on it. Share the video, like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And I'll see you guys in the video. Until then, stay ferocious and vigilant, Knights of Brimstone.